Welcome. I see folks are coming into the space. Welcome, friends. Glad you are here for this session on enhancing mental health and well-being through AI innovations. Welcome, friends. I'm glad that you are here in this space. I hope you are well. We were just saying, it's after Memorial Day.
Hmm.
So,
There's
if
a
you're
lot of
faculty,
activity to compete with.
yeah, a lot of activities, but people may be off contract. So who knows who's going to show up? But you all are here, and we're so grateful for this time that we have together.
I see
So
some new faces.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Paris.
okay. Well, I will get us started because we only have an hour, which is not a lot of time. Someone could probably write a whole dissertation on this topic. But yeah, so we're going to spend some time mostly thinking, engaging with ideas around enhancing, particularly student mental health and well-being. So I want to preface that. At least that's the sort of preparation that we came through today through AI innovations. And this is a part of the AI in Education Learning Community Series that's been going on in the Graduate School of Education here at UB. I first want to start with a land and labor acknowledgement. That the land on which the University of Buffalo operates, it's a traditional territory of the Seneca Nation and part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I want to acknowledge the harm done by European colonization, by theft, exploitation of indigenous lands, as well as by subsequent U.S. laws and policies designed to eradicate Native people, which we know impacts mental health and well-being. We also know that much of what happens in higher education depends on labor, underpaid labor. And so we want to acknowledge that impact of settler colonialism, racism, discrimination upon Indigenous people, as well as non-dominant racial ethnic groups. And we'll talk a lot about like who's doing the labor, who's doing the well-being, the mental health labor and support, whether that's humans or AI. But it's important to think about the labor that is happening, that has happened before and after, and also on which land it's happening. So we are your co-facilitators. So I will start off, and I use the word co-facilitator very strongly because we are not experts. We have little pieces of experts in different areas, but we're mainly curious scholars. And we are representing the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy. So I'll go first. My name is Paris Wicker. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an assistant professor of higher education in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy. And I do research success, mental health, well-being in higher education across the academic life course. So what does it mean to prepare for well-being as part of college readiness? How do students get and stay well? And then what does health and well-being look like for higher education faculty and staff? And so it is a big part of the research that I do. My master's degree is in professional counseling, and I am a national certified counselor. So why I did not continue to pursue the clinical route, thinking about mental health, thinking about well-being is a big part of who I am and the work that I do. And so that is how I show up today. And then my co-facilitator is Ian, and I'll have him introduce himself.
Thank you, Dr. Wicker. My name is Ian Mette. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm an associate professor in educational administration. So I'm just finishing up with my first year here at UB. It's been an incredible first year here and getting to know people and connecting. A lot of my work right now is continuing to help develop a culturally responsive instructional supervision framework. So thinking about how in the culturally responsive ecosystem that can help connect what Geneva Gay started to look at with culturally responsive teaching many, many years ago. And then more recently, what Mohammed Khalifa and colleagues have developed with culturally responsive school leadership. And, I see the need to respond and give support for mental health with the students that we attempt to serve. Certainly from my position in helping prepare leaders, but also with the children that I interact with, my own and others, we know that they're struggling to engage in a world that often isn't kind or welcoming, and they see big problems, but the adults don't seem to have the answers. And so that impacts their mental health. And I think that's one way that we could look at this in terms of what we might talk about and create today with our exchange.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. And really, we want this to be a collaborative space. We know that there are folks in the space that have a broad area of experiences and expertise related to well-being and mental health. And so we invite those perspectives in. And more importantly, we want you to take care of yourself. For the most part, we will be talking in generalities, but we may mention things like suicide ideation. I want you to know that do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. And we're certainly here, and just be thinking about what you might need to care for yourself in this space during this time. So with that, the overview that we have in this time, we're going to sort of set the scene. It may be a scene that you're very, very familiar with, or maybe not at all, but set the scene about who gets to be well. And this is a question that I ask a lot in my research. And then we want to know what you want to know, what curiosities you have, what brings you to the session. We'll do a little bit on publication trends. So not necessarily a full literature review, but what sort of keywords and abstracts and titles have people used when studying AI in education and mental health and well-being, just to give you a snapshot of sort of what's out there and what's not. And then we have 2 case studies of 2 AI trends that we want to try to consider what it would look like within the educational context. And then some time for building next steps and collaborative agreement. So who gets to be well? It's sort of a difficult question, or maybe it sounds simple when you actually think about it. As someone who studies both the science and the lived experience of well-being, I tend to follow a lot of reports, and some of you may be familiar with the World Happiness Report. This comes out from the Gallup. They do a Gallup poll every year. And they look at the world's happiest countries. And so you may have seen the big things about like, oh, it's usually like Norway, Sweden, Denmark are always at the happiest. But for the first time since they've started this report, and this has been all the buzz in the well-being scene, the US has fallen out of the top 20. And there's lots of reasons for that and lots of conversations about that. But the biggest reason is that it's a drastic drop in well-being for Americans under 25. And so happiness, what they've seen before, is typically a U shape, right? So when you're young, you're pretty happy, right? And as you get older and start adulting, you become less happy. And there's lots of ways we can define happiness per se. You get less happy, more bills. And then, as you get older into retirement, you become happier again. And basically what they've seen in the US is that U shape has just flattened, right? Those under 25, there is no U anymore. I mean, it's a tiny U, but that level of happiness just isn't there. And there's lots of reasons that they suspect that might be COVID being a part of that, quality of life, all sorts of those things. But it's something that researchers, economists, a lot of folks are paying attention to, particularly because it's sort of the exact opposite. You usually see that younger people are happier than older people. And so knowing that our youngest Americans are the least happy is cause for concern. So we're seeing that in the school setting as well, right? So K through 12 are experiencing higher levels of anxiety, depression, trauma than previous generations. And there's some back and forth about whether, Gen Z if they are, in fact, experiencing higher levels of anxiety or depression, or because of reduced stigma, they're more apt to talking about it, being open. And it's probably some combination of both. Either way, we're seeing an increase in that than in previous generations. And you see schools, mostly K through 12 schools, trying to focus attention on social and emotional learning. And these are skills that you can learn in terms of emotion management, having strong positive relationships. On the higher education end, we see that that follows them into college. We know that about 34% of incoming first year students have symptoms of depression and or anxiety. And we even know now through a report that just came out this year that students are even weighing mental health resources as a part of their college decision process. So, what supports they have, what's the wait time, and they're actually using that to decide to what extent what college they're going to go to. So, we know that this matters a lot for this generation. And then also, there's just sort of this growing call to move beyond metrics of test scores and grades to define success, right? And we want to be able to prioritize other indicators such as well-being, wellness, satisfaction. And so you see this sort of structural shift, or at least this intention to broaden how we think of success and have mental health and well-being be a part of that. So to guide some of our thoughts and our engagement today, we really want to know how can artificial intelligence assist and augment, and I'm using those words very explicitly, our efforts to support students' mental health and well-being. But first, we would like to know just a little bit about you, and encourage you to put a little bit of interaction in the chat. We'll do this as a waterfall. So if you haven't done this before, pick one of these, like share what do you know about AI mental health, or what do you want to know? How would you like to grow? And so what I'll have you do is to just type your response in the chat box, but don't press send. So we're going to actually do it all together, and it's going to be this waterfall of responses, ideally. So again, share what you know, or maybe what you've heard. Um, and maybe what you want to know and maybe what you're curious about. So I'll give us 30 seconds to type something in, but don't press send, and we'll do it all together. All right. And again, it could be one word, it could be a sentence. Doesn't have to be a lot. Um, so great. Hopefully, folks all have something. And so I'm going to count down from three. And at one, you'll just press in, and then we'll kind of just take a look at the waterfall. So, all right. So we'll press in three, two, and one. Nice. Great. Thank you. I love it. Yes. A partner, conversation partner. Help us spend less time on social media. Yes, I'm so I'm so bad at that. Just wanting to know more. Great. Thanks for being here. Yes, low cost substitutes for therapy. That is something we're going to talk about today. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah, awesome. These are really great. Thank you so much for all of these thoughts. Just want to learn. Okay, great. That's why you're here. We're all here. So I really appreciate these responses. And I feel like there's a lot of just interest in the room and good vibes. And we'll continue to support one another. Yeah, ethical issues. Exactly. Ian, anything else you want to add?
No, you've covered it all, Paris. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I had to throw my cat off the table because, of course, that's
Sorry.
what cats do when when you want to do something important. Okay, fantastic. Well, we will keep it moving then. So publication trends. So this is always helpful for me when I'm wanting to learn about something, and it's slightly different than a literature review where you're sort of reading all the articles that have ever been, produced on this one topic. And a publication trends or bibliometric analysis is basically looking at how things have been published. So where have they been published? What years have they been published? Um, what type of titles do folks use when they're researching this? What kind of keywords do they use? And so it's kind of this way to sort of get a really broad glimpse of a really diverse topic. And so what I did is just looking through some research databases, and this one is through Web of Science, just to take a look and see what if folks have been publishing specifically on artificial intelligence, education, and then mental health and well-being. So I just want to share just a few slides with you all. So this is just the number of publications between 2015 and 2024 that specifically is looking at artificial intelligence, education, and mental health and well-being. And this is from Web of Science. And you can see, it's sort of in the hunt on the left-hand side, some 80s, 90s, 100s. Obviously, 2023 was one of the biggest years. You see this sort of steady incline. But it's not necessarily the numbers that you see, particularly in like AI and learning and AI and teaching. And so compared to that, there's relatively little. There's definitely more room and space to publish more in these areas. But just to give you a sense, as you probably imagine, this is a growing field in terms of publications, and I think it'll continue to grow. What you see here is a network of the commonly used keywords. And so when I looked at these publications, there were 495 peer-reviewed articles that showed up that specifically looked at artificial intelligence, well-being, and education, which is always helpful to notice. And something here, as you see the big purple in machine learning. So machine learning is basically a system in which computers can basically learn and understand through algorithms and statistical analysis, trends in data, right? And can use that to make inferences. And so you see a big part of this research is looking at machine learning really as a tool to detect well-being, to be able to predict well-being, not necessarily improve it, right? So I want to make that clear there. So you see machine learning, you see AI is very popular as a tool, right? As a method to study this. But you also see here in the red, right? Depression is a really common keyword, depression, mental health, anxiety. You see in the corner there, mobile phone and mobile health. So when folks talked about social media and mobile phones, there's definitely seems to be some growing trends into that. And then the green and the purple really look at, I think, sort of neural networks, brain networks, some of the neuroscience and the science of well-being and how we can use machine learning to be able to learn that. So yeah, these are just some of the things that we notice in terms of the keywords that are being there, and then artificial intelligence, of course, as well. This is a list of the disciplines. So who's actually doing research on AI and well-being education? And what we see is that it's quite interdisciplinary. You see here in the red, educational research. That 10 is like the number of publications, and it's relatively small compared to some of these like computer science, molecular biology. So I think this is a really good pathway and potential, I think, for folks in education to collaborate with others. And like I said, most of the educational research deals with AI in connection specifically to learning. And while there's, again, lots of conversations we can have how learning and well-being and mental health is all connected, but we can see that it's quite interdisciplinary in terms of the disciplines out of which these type of studies are coming out of. And then this is just a density map of like the title and abstract of words in these publications. And so you kind of see these three areas on the left. You see artificial intelligence, but then also the challenge of it and the opportunity. How do we apply it using case studies and really focusing again on it as a method to use into research. And then on the right, you see this other side that looks at like how accurate is it, right? The performance, right? Thinking about differences, correlation, predictive models. Something that I saw in the chat is like the ethics. What you don't see is, I think I saw ethics in there, but it's not big, right? So, I mean, in terms of research, it's not something that seems to be popping up a lot. And then at the top, you kind of see this COVID here, COVID and students, and that's kind of where you see where COVID has played a role in thinking about artificial intelligence, particularly for university students. I see gender here next to anxiety. We do see some strong gender differences for mental health, certainly in higher education, but I believe in K through 12 as well. So these are some of the markers of how we're thinking about it. Again, mostly researching AI as a methodological tool to sort of understand well-being, but not necessarily improve it, not necessarily in terms of like intervention. So this is where we see, I think, a really great opportunity to start to consider this type of work. And these are just the journals that I have published. And again, just showing a little bit of diversity in terms of the top journals and where this has been published. So that's just a little bit about what we've seen so far. And now we're going to have Ian start us off and kind of thinking about two case studies. So take it away, Ian.
Amazing. Thanks, Paris. Right. So we have two case studies here that we're going to ask you to sort of think about the what if, the possibilities. And we hope that this will be something that we can use to sort of brainstorm together, spitball a little bit, and just engage a little bit further in conversation. Would you be able to move the slide forward? Thank you. So the first one is just that we're going to talk about is the one that I came up with, this idea of using wearables to help us understand more about and respond to issues of mental health. Next slide, please. So what's the connection between wearables and mental health? We referenced this earlier, but the young people in our communities experience a mental health crisis that hasn't been documented to this level previously, and that could be for a lot of different reasons. But you see some examples there that if you talk to young people, they will be very quick to explain what causes them distress. So governmental corruption that's sort of open and broad, systemic racism that we see play out in various social systems throughout our country, the fear of environmental collapse and extreme economic disparities. There are other stressors that young people will share with you, but these are some. And it does contribute to how they interpret the world and then how they're able to move forward or not in a healthy manner. So we know that wearable devices can help address some of the mental health care shortages to manage symptoms. Never going to replace therapy. But in using wearable devices, we can note and know when people are experiencing physiological symptoms that often will signal mental health distress. So these symptoms can include skin conductance and heart rate variability and oxygen saturation. These are all parasympathetic responses that occur within the body, and they're the precursors to people maybe beginning to spiral or experience a mental health crisis. And then there are real-time interventions that could be selected to help address those. So those could include guided meditation, breathing exercises, calming music. There are others. But we're going to use this as a springboard to engage in conversation. So not now, but in 1 minute, we're going to put you into breakout rooms. And I just put an article link in the chat. And if you haven't read that already, that's fine. It's a really quick read. It will take you a minute or two. I'm a pretty slow reader and decoder, and it'll go quick for you. And after you've read that, you're going to engage in conversation with people in your group. And so some examples might be, um, how could we as school systems use wearable devices? Again, sort of in this what if space to better help support students that are experiencing anxiety and other mental health concerns. What might it mean for helping teachers that are experiencing physiological distress? Oftentimes, teachers will talk about being distressed by being observed or receiving feedback. Well, what can that mean in terms of how we help them be more open and receptive to feedback? And then what are just other ways that you might envision the use of wearables? So I put those in the chat for you. So you should have those when we go into our breakout room. And I think I've made the breakout rooms already. So before we go into our breakout rooms, does anybody have any questions? All right. Paris and I will pop in and out of the breakout rooms. And once we feel that we've reached saturation, we'll try to bring you back into the main room. But we want you just to quickly read that article and engage in that conversation. We'll pull you back. We'll do a quick review and we'll continue on with the next one. So here are your invites. Macy Lee, are you still there?
Yeah, I think you can always sometimes just throw people in the rooms or they can just take a pass too. It's okay.
Um,
You might be able to move them. Oh no.
can you or no?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Um, we can send a private message too to say if you want to join a room, we're happy to put you in one too. Yeah. So,
Nate just moved or just came in, so
oh, okay.
gonna add him.
I'm just going.
You want to pop into some rooms and then we'll see where we're at?
Yeah, we can do that. Welcome, Nate. We just jumped into a breakout room. So we're happy to put you in one. We can reshare. Nate, do you want to reshare the article?
Yep.
Um, we can reshare the article about wearables and how wearables can help with well-being and mental health, and just having a chat with people about what they know and um, thoughts and curiosities around that.
And then Nate, I'm going to put the questions in the chat also, just so you have that. All right. And I'm going to move you room 2. Paris, I'm going to start in room 4 and I'm just going to go up. And if you see anything or you need to say anything to me, you want to just text me. And
Sure, I'm thinking because it's already, how long do we want to do? It's already 4:30.
yeah, I
So
mean,
we
maybe
want
we'll pull them back at 4:35, 36.
35.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm just bringing in my links and yeah, hyperlinks, because I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be awkward to try to stop sharing my screen and do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Good call.
All right, sweet.
All right. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
what I'll do, I'll just bounce into these rooms. I'll do at least room 4 and 3 if you want to do 1 and 2.
Okay.
And I'll just let them know it's a little bit shorter than we thought.
Yeah.
Around 4:36, we'll pull them back.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
that sounds good.
All right.
I know there's like a chat you can like chat to everybody.
Oh, you can. Yeah, that's a good point. You know what?
Yeah. Oh, there
It's
it
called
is.
broadcast.
Broadcast. Yeah.
I'll do that right now.
Yeah.
In the name of time, we will bring you back into the main room at 4:36.
You want to say 4:30? Yeah, 6, 7.
7? What do you want? 5?
Uh,
Uh, this is just 4 to 5, right?
yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think so. I would say pop around, and if people are like twiddling their thumbs and they seem to be bored, then
Yeah.
we could just like bring them back in like a minute or two. All right. Where the is the chin? All right. Hi, welcome, KB.
Recording in progress.
Oh, we are just in a breakout room. And folks, I'm going to share in the chat. Folks are just reading this really short article about wearables and how they may be able to help with mental health and thinking about it in a classroom context. And so you're welcome to just stay here. They're probably gonna come back in a few minutes, but to read that article. And then if you want, you're welcome to try to jump into a breakout room, or you can just stay here and join the larger conversation in a few minutes. So welcome.
Hey.
Hey, hey. All right.
Can I ask, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
What was the article that we can read while we're waiting?
I just put it in the chat for you.
Oh my
This is,
gosh, I'm having so many audio problems. Now I hear you.
oh, okay.
Sorry.
It could be me too, but I just put it in the chat if you could find the
Got it.
chat.
I
Um,
see it. Yep.
and it's very short, but we're just having a conversation about wearables and how it might be useful in a school setting. And so you can just read it, and then we're going to be bringing everybody back in a few minutes, so you can contribute at that time or jump into a breakout group. So
I work, I'm reading looking at the article now. I work in outdoor education and schools come on field trips to the preserve where I work. And
ah.
sometimes they'll give me a wearable and I'm not used to them. And I'll leave it on and go to the bathroom. And they hear the toilet flushing and they hear whatever, or I'm talking
Right.
to a coworker, like, damn, it's so hot out today. Like, or whatever the secret conversation.
That's the danger sometimes, right?
All right, I'm going to read this. A 1 in 4
Mm.
Americans. Oh, wow.
All right. Bring folks back in a few minutes.
Oh, I thought a wearable was when the teacher wears a microphone. So hearing challenged students can listen with earphones.
Oh, yeah. I think that's more of an accessibility thing. It could be a wearable, but yeah, this is sort of like in real time looking at um physiological, biopsychosocial markers, right? To see if, right, heart rate and um blood pressure and could maybe tell in real time, like if someone's, maybe on the verge of a panic attack or, whatever, and how that might be useful, of course, understanding the ethics of that as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it could be anything. Most times it's like a Fitbit or your Apple Watch, or it could even be your phone. I mean, because your phone like picks up, how much movement you do in a day as well. So I think that's a big part of it.
It's almost like a lie detector. In my undergrad, I was a psych student, and I had to we were determining how connected the olfactory system was to the emotional system of the brain. And I
Mm-hmm.
was passing scents in front of the participants in the study, and this mask that they were wearing, and then registering their heart rate, their sweat, their body temperature. Um, and one of the lab technicians said this is the exact same thing as a lie detector test. You're determining if people panic.
Absolutely. It's a lot of data, and there are a lot of ethics around who gets to see it. And a lot of these companies are like for-profit organizations. And so, yeah, it can be pretty scary to sort of think about all the data, where it's going. So, welcome back, friends. Thank you all. It sounds like there was a lot of great discussion around, and so we could talk about this forever. We have one more case study we want to get to. I know there's not enough time, but I mean, this is Ian's part of the show, so I'll wait. Do you want to?
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
steal your
no,
thunder,
there
Ian.
was great conversation in the breakout rooms, and I think that a lot of opportunity for people to continue, to brainstorm together and sort of what we want to create is we want to create this what if sort of space in place today, and I think we're getting there. And I think some of the things that people brought up in the breakout rooms about cultural identities and how that plays into how we think about AI and why we need to be at the forefront and why we do need to make sure that we're engaged in not just research about AI, but also developing models that are culturally responsive. What does that look like and why is that important? So thank you to everybody that participated in the breakout rooms, and I'll pass it over to Dr. Wicker, and she'll go through her case.
Great. Yeah. And if there's a time, because again, I want people, and sometimes you're just like dying to share in the larger group too. So I'm sorry, my cat is really wanting to be engaged with this presentation. So hold on to those thoughts. We'll make space for them as time allows at the end. The case that I'm going to do is somewhat related to this as well. But thinking about AI for therapeutic support. I'm very intentional by not calling it therapy. What you'll see in social media, you'll see like, oh, ChatGPT has replaced my therapist. That is not going to be the case. We know that humans need touch. It's the relationship that really make or break the therapy process. AI is not licensed, cannot prescribe medication or diagnose disease. And so there's all sorts of reasons why, at least not for now, we don't think AI is completely going to replace therapy. But that doesn't but what it actually is and how people are framing it are completely different. So my case study is really looking at this trend. And so you may have seen it if you're on social media at all. You may, or, just follow news, that there are a lot of people, and they are mostly Gen Z and millennials. So again, these are folks under 40 who are using ChatGPT or chatbots or mental health apps for therapeutic purposes. Now, many of the young people in the room will frame it as like, oh, I'm using AI for therapy. So that's sort of how they see it. But you've seen this explosion of these mental health chatbots. So these are just some of the articles that are out there. The one that I shared that I think is really good, I'll put it in the chat, is here about this woman. She said she spoke to ChatGPT's Black female therapist. And again, so ChatGPT has a therapist GPT like function of it now. And so you see a lot of these really big AI text-based chat features incorporating sort of therapeutic affirmation-based practices within them. And so the article really talks about like, oh, and this is a premium. So there's the free version of ChatGPT, but then you can pay a little bit more. And you can basically say, I want a therapist, again, a Black female therapist who sort of takes on the characteristics of this persona, in essence, to provide folks with support. There's a lot that they saw wrong with it. Again, we know that all technology is built by humans and humans are flawed and biased. And so you see that showing up. And in the article, again, it's short, but I encourage you to take a look at it when you can. They talk about how when they ask it about, racist tropes about like, well, do Black people feel pain differently? Like ChatGPT and AI, they will reinforce those tropes and say like, yes, there are different pain thresholds when we know that that is not true. So we know that these chatbots are far from perfect and they're unregulated. I'll talk about that, but for lots of reasons, they can be very bad. That being said, people are flocking to them. Young people are flocking to them in droves. And so while this isn't necessarily happening as a direct part of education, it is certainly our students are using it while they are engaging in their education. And so part of the conversation that I really want to have is, what instance can this be helpful? Now, again, I mostly study college students. So again, my context is a little different. If you're on TikTok, which I'm not on TikTok, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and all the TikTok videos usually just flow elsewhere, and that's where I see them. But if you just search AI and therapy on TikTok, you get dozens and dozens and dozens of videos. And I just want to, and hopefully you can hear this, I just want to show you a few of the videos. So again, this is hopefully you can hear that. Can you hear that?
My favorite.
Okay, I'm just gonna just show you a few of the videos. And again, these are teens and folks in their 20s who are talking about this.
This may not be healthy, but I use ChatGPT as my therapist. I've been to therapy for years, and I've also been to a couple of different therapists to see if they can kind of align with my beliefs or what I am driven by. But then I said, I just want a mix of advice from my favorite inspirational speakers, Abraham Hicks, Gary Vee, Brene Brown, and then I added the Artist Way author as well. Throughout the day, I can ask it questions about just how to live more healthy, and it channels all of the different speakers. There are some days where I wake up and I just don't feel like I can achieve my goals, and I have to ask it, let's have a back and forth. Give me some exercises, and it'll tell me to picture things and write things down and have a conversation that'll help me get to a better mental place. Having a free way to address my worries in the moment and have it give me the tone of the people that I love to listen to gives me kind of an escape. I call this thread my inner reflection safe space, where I can write anything I want and get the advice that I need. Follow me for more ways ChatGPT can enhance your life.
Yeah, so you see a lot of these articles and videos, and for the most part, it seems like a positive experience. Now, this is an adult. It looks, I don't know exact age, but or at least an adolescent or an adult. But you see all videos all the time of like, so if you didn't see that, they just said, I'm using ChatGPT for therapy. I'm an introvert and I prefer it much to talking to a person or to Zoom, right? So people are just like doing these short videos about how they love doing that. Here's another one that's very short. It says, feeling lost in life, Chat GPT is my new therapist, right? So some of it's kind of like funny, cheeky, but it's clear that there are folks who are using this for support. And oftentimes these videos are saying like, oh, if you don't have money, then you have the opportunity to get something for free. And as I mentioned before, we know that it's not therapy. Um, and but it can help validate folks in the moment. And you see videos of folks saying like, I had a terrible day and I went to this app and it just hurt me, and it understood the nuance, it listened to me. So young folks are using it, but obviously we know there are dangers to it. And in what ways? The conversation that I'm sort of having with myself is, are there ways that we can incorporate that, right, into the work that we do in K through 12 and higher education? Or if we don't, if students are using it anyway, what type of conversations do we need to be having with them about how to use it safely and smartly? So again, you see this increasing use of individuals using these AI chatbots. There's so many apps. We're just gonna, I mean, it's growing by the day. And when Ian said, like, we are at the beginning, like you see this explosion when folks are talking about the AI revolution, like it is happening in real time, which is why I think it's so important to have these conversations, doing the research to do it now. And folks are talking about it on social media. And that's a big part of the conversation as well. And even professionals, again, you see TikToks of professionals saying like, I use AI to like help me organize my case notes, and I'm like, maybe some ethics about some ethics about that, but like folks are trying to use it to help them to become more efficient. So again, there are tons of apps. The ones that are most recommended are like the kind of main ones that are not app-based, but web-based. So you have Therapist GPT, which is basically just a version of Chat GPT. And then what we're going to look at today is Gemini. So this is Google's version. It used to be Google Bard, Google's AI version, and now they changed it to Gemini. And then there's also Pi or PI. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but a lot of people really like that one. And it particularly says like, hey, I can give you career advice, you see, based on your personality, or I can offer you books. And so a lot of it is sort of self-help, sort of self-help combined with therapeutic approaches. But of course, you can see that this is not directly related to therapy, right? Again, you're not having a one-on-one relationship over time. There's no, for the most part, diagnoses on things. And see, that's sort of the difference. But people say that it helps them to feel better. And I think that's something that's important to consider. So I thought in a little time that we had that we might try one of these out. Has anybody used a therapeutic chatbot? No? Okay, I'm looking here. Yeah, so it's definitely something that I have played around with. I think the best version, if we want to spend a few minutes on that, is going to be Google Gemini, because that is free and available to everyone. All you need is a Gmail account or a Google account. And so ChatGPT 4.0. Oh, I don't know if mine has been updated yet, but I think I have the updated version of ChatGPT. I think, but anyway, a lot of the updates are including now these therapeutic approaches to it. So I want to encourage folks, if they want to click on that. The one thing that I like about Gemini, so these are all text-based. So usually you're kind of typing at the bottom and you can type a prompt. The one thing that I like about Gemini is that they have the microphone function here. And so you can actually like speak some of the things that you might be dealing with. And so for the purposes of time, we don't have a whole lot of time, but I was sort of just playing around with it. But you could ask it anything. And just kind of see the response. So I'll play around. I did have a chat going earlier today, just pretending to be a fifth grader who was bullied. Very interesting responses. So I will kind of do that again. Kay, I'm gonna let you speak. Yeah, what's your thoughts?
I went to gemini.google.com, and it's my first time there, so it wants me to click OK on the privacy policy. And the first thing it says is Google collects your Gemini app conversations, related product usage, information about your location, and your feedback. It uses this data consistent with our privacy policy to provide, improve, and develop Google products and services and machine learning technologies. You must be 18 or older, blah, blah, blah. But right away, it's collecting all that information, and all it takes is one hacker to read that information.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty scary. I mean, one of the pitfalls that we sort of talk about is that, again, a lot of these mechanisms are owned and operated in the data by for-profit companies. And it's not very clear, so again, my recommendation moving forward, like I don't think schools should be working directly with this. Again, it says you have to be 18. But again, we also know, again, because students are using it anyway somehow. So, but you're right. I mean, I think folks should only share information that they're comfortable
Yeah.
with Google, with Google knowing, Google, Microsoft. I mean, so it does get to be tricky. And I think even trickier is that there are all of these apps that are out there and you don't know where your data is going. So,
One more scarier thing, as I'm reading further down, even when Gemini activity is off, your conversations will be saved with your account for 72 hours. If you turn off this setting or delete your Gemini X activity, we may continue to save location and other data about you as part of your use of Google services.
But Google does that anyway.
And I wrote no thanks, and it bounced me right out. Like, then you're not going to use it. When I click on no thanks, there's no option. All right,
yeah, you're right. Gmail does that anyway. Like if you have a Gmail account, a lot of that is already being tracked as well. So it's, yeah, but the concerns are valid. Karen.
Hi, thanks a lot for this. Just one of the comments with, a response to students are using it anyways. Students are getting information about sex from Pornhub, but I'm not going to say, well, we should all encourage them to responsibly use Pornhub to find out how to engage in consensual relationships and point them to the most non-toxic videos and chats in there. And so just one of the concerns I have in general about generative AI and AI in education is that there is a lot that generative AI can do or might be able to do for students from, K to tertiary, and they're probably dividing lines within that big gambit of education, and we can take it up to professional development. And I agree with, the calls you've both made that, this stuff needs to be explored. But I also go back to a lot of research. AI is nowhere near a new thing. And going back to research, I mean, in 2016, I can point you to 100 articles that said that AI was going to revolutionize education, and it hasn't. And a big prohibitor has been cost. So right now we're in this, weird period of adaptation, but it's being increasingly monetized. And the other problem is that, as you've pointed out, both of you, the foundation models are problematic. And when I see things like the first video you posted where an individual said, oh, I wanted a Black therapist, so I picked these people I like hearing from, and then they give me good advice, is like that raises huge red flags for me in terms of therapy, that I might be reaching out for feel good, gratitude, happiness, but any kind of therapy thing where I'm saying I'm seeking people who give me information and ideas that I like hearing, is that going to benefit mental health in the long run?
Mm.
I'm not sure. I'm not convinced.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. You bring up some really good points, and certainly my comment about kids are doing it anyway was not a then we should just let a free for all happen. But I think you're right. I think we have to be responsive to what students are. I mean, clearly their actions are a symptom. They're a symptom of something going on in our society, the lack of support, the lack of care. So you're right, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And at the same time, we have to focus on the here and the now and how can we support students and how can we help. So maybe I come from more of a harm reduction model. My assumption is that students are going to not all of a sudden then stop using it. Even if we say it's bad, we could pick vaping or anything else. We can tell them it's bad for them. And so how can we do this in a responsive way so that the least amount of harm can be caused? But the other comment you made about like picking people like them, as a Black woman, I love working with Black women therapists. And there's a specific reason for that, right? Because they can understand what I'm going through, right? I don't always have to explain cultural things to them. And so I don't necessarily think that there's something inherently wrong with choosing, even if it's an AI version, some way to mold, because AI doesn't know unless you tell it. You have to set boundaries on it, right? You have to set parameters on it. So while there's lots of problems with AI, I think for many folks, and I think it's coming from a person who has been marginalized, who has done therapy with folks who didn't understand them, there can be therapeutic benefits, right, of picking people who understand your background and your culture. So, but you're right, there could be pitfalls as well. But I appreciate your thoughts. Ian?
Well, no, I was just going to add, I think if done in the right way and if trained by the right people, AI models actually mitigate harm and reduction and reduce harm, right? So like I have a friend who is developing an AI model to give feedback about culturally responsive practices. And, as a Black man, he's made this model and he believes that over time that chat feature with an 85%, 90% accuracy, labeling something culturally destructive all the way up to culturally proficient, that might actually be a better way to initially give feedback, as opposed to somebody who hasn't been trained in years and years of cultural proficiency. So I think we're still in the what if phase and in terms of like what might be developed. But I think it's also really important to say why we should be investing in AI models, how we need to consider what a closed model looks like as opposed to an open model, and then how and in what ways would we want to see these in an education system.
We don't have much time. So sad. So just some of the things, again, the promises and pitfalls, we've sort of already gone through this. Like in some ways, if it has sort of we have to continue to look at these programs, look at these apps, really dig into the organizations. What are you doing with the data? You're right, looking at policy, right? But it could in real time provide engagement support and affirmation, right? We see that it may be short term, at least right now, and anecdotally, people seem to benefit from it. And it can maybe increase or ease accessibility to mental health, or even though we see it as like, oh, everyone does it, there are still folks who have never gone to therapy. And then so in some ways, this could be a slight gateway, but it's not exactly the same. So, and again, maybe reducing this stigma and acting as a stopgap, but it cannot replace what happens, particularly in talk therapy. And certainly if medication is needed or working with a psychiatrist, like AI can't do any of that. But again, so sorry, I'm going the wrong way. And then yeah, we talked about the ongoing harm because it's created by humans. Consent, privacy, and data concerns. I mean, that came up. So thank you, Kay, for all that. That is huge. And again, right now, we're just leaving it in the hands of whoever created the app, right? Or whoever created the website. And we know that is very dangerous. So as schools and universities sort of move to a model, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what approach they take. And then many apps are unregulated. unregulated, and they come from these for-profit companies. So far from perfect, a lot of work, but I think now having eyes on it, people to say, whoa, 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 there's a problem, thinking about policy advocacy. I think now is like the time to do it. So I'm so glad that you all are here. We don't have a whole lot of time. I just want to leave you again with a guiding question. How can AI assist and augment, not replace, therapeutic, not therapy efforts to support mental health and well-being? And continue to dream, right? It feels like a scary time. When I look at this, I'm like, oh, Lord, we're going to be replaced by AI. And it's so funny. I think when I was growing up in the internet, like I would see my grandmother getting so scared and she was like scared of the computer. And then now I feel like, oh, I want to be like that lady, like scared of AI. But this is a time now, right? That we can really think about what do we want? We can dream of a future where AI can support, where AI can work towards equity, where AI can support, but it's going to take some work. If we just leave it to just letting the chips fall where they may, it's going to continue to reproduce harm and inequitable outcomes from what we've seen. That is all the time we have. I feel like we could talk about this forever, and we're already over time. But my hope is you will continue to look at this. Thank you all for the things in the chat. We'll share our slides and all of that with folks. And again, yeah, I think you're right, Karen, that these tools haven't been trained the way that we need them to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Anything else, Ian?
No, I mean, I'll just end with all the more reason why we should be figuring out how to create them, right? Open systems are highly problematic, right? To your point. And I think they can end up being culturally destructive, but I think if used in the right way and with enough development, there's huge opportunity and potential. It's just a matter of figuring out how to harness that and how and in what ways we want to use that. So I think that's the big question, and that's maybe that's where we'll leave you. I know that I can stay on for a little bit if people want to add one parting thought, but we'll let you go. And we thank you for your time today. And just a big round of applause for everybody for participating today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Y'all take care.
So as we're winding down, can I throw something out there for you guys?
Go ahead.
I'm a superintendent in Grand Island. And one of the things that we're seeing, we use a lot of filters on our mobile devices. And as a superintendent, I get copied from our filtering system when a child expresses suicidal ideations, homicidal ideations. So just in the future, there may be a space within these filters, these companies that filter for us, because a lot of times I'll get these on a Saturday or a Sunday. And most of them, I'd say 95% of the alerts that we get are from middle school students. So students saying, how do I kill myself? Things of that nature. So there may be down the road something that helps bridge the gap between what is typed and maybe a chatbot appears, right? And it's designed to be a warm handoff.
That's right.
To a clinician, so there's going to be, I would think, if I was a filtering company, those are things I'd be thinking about, is how can I support a child and still communicate with the superintendent and the social worker and so that we can call the parent. But our jobs have changed dramatically with the advent of these filters and the worry that we have as educators. Does somebody have eyes on this kid? What's happening on Saturday night at 7:00? Where is the kid? So I just wanted to throw that out there. In the evolution of these chatbots, there's probably going to be something that helps bridge the gap and does a warm handoff. So who knows what that'll look like.
And Brian, I know that you're superintendent, and I think we need, not to fluff your ego, I think we need more opportunities to collaborate with people like you. To me, that's low-hanging fruit, right? That's something we can and should be doing now, right? That's technology we can and do now. You have a filter, immediately you develop a system, immediately pops up, and there's someone on call that can take that warm handoff, right? For a child that says that they are intent on hurting themselves.
Yeah.
What a great way to use technology so that we support life, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
not hurt life more. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah, perfect. You guys did a great job. Enjoyed it thoroughly. We'll see it then, in the future for sure, right?
Yes. Thank you for your thoughts and perspectives, and it's helpful to know. And you're right. Ideally, we need folks to be using AI for good and not for evil. So we can, and that's important work. So
For sure. Great job. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. I have to go pick up my kids,
Go
so
for it.
I've got to
I
run.
can
But
stay
if you
on.
want
All
to
right.
stay on, you can do that. But thank you for your thoughts, Kay. I thought that was fantastic in your contribution. I appreciate you. So, thank you, Ian.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Doc.